The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the skies over Seoul in shades of orange and purple. The city buzzed with its usual rhythm, cars honking on busy streets, neon signs flickering to life, and people hurrying home after long days at work. Among the millions moving through the sprawling metropolis were two individuals whose paths would soon cross under extraordinary circumstances. Jae-hyun was a quiet man in his early 30s, known for his sharp mind and unassuming demeanor. He worked as an engineer at a secretive government facility tucked away in the outskirts of Seoul. Few people knew what went on inside those walls, but Jae-hyun spent most of his waking hours there, tinkering with machines and solving problems. No one else could. Tonight, however, he felt uneasy. His phone vibrated in his pocket, a text from his supervisor. "Report to HQ immediately." The tone was urgent, almost desperate. Jae-hyun frowned, grabbed his coat, and headed out into the cool evening air. Across town, Hye-jin sat hunched over her laptop in a cramped apartment cluttered with papers and coffee cups. She was a journalist, famous, or infamous, depending on who you asked, for chasing stories others dismissed as conspiracy theories. Her latest obsession? Reports of strange lights in the sky and mysterious power outages across the globe. Most people laughed at her ideas, but Hye-jin didn't care. Something about these incidents gnawed at her instincts, telling her there was more to uncover. As night fell, the first signs of trouble began creeping into the city. Streetlights flickered unpredictably, casting eerie shadows on the pavement. A subway train screeched to a halt mid-tunnel, leaving passengers stranded for nearly an hour. Even the internet seemed sluggish, with websites loading slower than usual. Hye-jin noticed all of this while scrolling through social media. Dozens of posts mentioned similar disturbances, not just in Seoul, but in cities around the world. Someone uploaded a blurry video showing greenish beams pulsating in the sky above New York City. Another user claimed their car GPS had gone haywire, directing them straight into a lake. It sounded absurd, yet Hye-jin couldn't shake the feeling that something big was happening. Back at the lab, Jae-hyun arrived to find chaos. Scientists rushed between terminals, shouting orders and typing furiously on keyboards. Screens displayed grainy images of unidentified objects hovering near Earth's orbit. One screen showed a map of the planet littered with red dots marking areas affected by blackouts and malfunctions. Jae-hyun's boss, Director Park, approached him looking pale and shaken. "Jae-hyun," Park said, gripping his arm tightly. "We've detected multiple things descending toward Earth. They're not ours." Jae-hyun blinked, processing the words. "Aliens?" he asked hesitantly. Park nodded grimly. "It looks that way. We need to activate Project Eclipse. You're the only one who can do it." Project Eclipse. Jae-hyun remembered hearing whispers about it during his early days at the facility. Rumors described it as a last-resort weapon designed to combat extraterrestrial threats. No one ever thought they'd actually need it. Now, standing amidst the commotion, Jae-hyun realized how real and terrifying the situation had become. Outside, the atmosphere grew heavier. Green streaks of light danced across the heavens, growing brighter with each passing second. People stopped in their tracks, pointing upward and snapping photos. Some cheered excitedly, mistaking the display for some kind of cosmic fireworks show. Others stared in silent awe, unsure whether to marvel or panic. Hye-jin stepped onto her balcony, camera in hand, determined to capture whatever was unfolding. As she adjusted her lens, a low hum filled the air, vibrating through her chest. It wasn't loud, but it was persistent, like the hum of electricity before a storm. Then came the voice, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to emanate not from speakers but directly from within her mind. "You have exploited your world. You have waged endless wars. Your time is over." Gasping, Hye-jin dropped her camera. The message repeated itself, echoing in multiple languages simultaneously. Around her, neighbors froze mid-step, eyes wide with shock. Children cried, clutching their parents' legs. Dogs barked wildly, sensing the unnatural energy permeating the air. Inside the lab, Jae-hyun heard the transmission too. His colleagues exchanged panicked glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. Humanity wasn't dealing with natural, phenomena or rogue technology, it was facing intelligent beings with capabilities far beyond human comprehension. Director Park handed Jae-hyun a small device resembling a remote control. "This will guide you to the Eclipse Core," he explained quickly. "It's located in Sublevel 7. You'll need to activate it manually. Once it's online, we can deploy it against the invaders." "Why me?" Jae-hyun asked, his voice trembling. "Slightly? Because you built half of it," Park replied firmly. "And because I trust you." With little time to argue, Jae-hyun accepted the mission. He descended into the labyrinthine depths of the facility, navigating narrow corridors illuminated by emergency lights. Each step took him further away from the surface world and closer to whatever awaited humanity above. Meanwhile, Hae-jin regained her composure and picked up her camera. Despite the fear coursing through her veins, she recognized the importance of documenting everything. If this truly was the end, someone needed to bear witness. She uploaded the footage to her social media accounts, adding a caption, "Something is coming. Stay safe." Within moments, the post garnered thousands of views and shares. Comments poured in, ranging from disbelief to outright terror. Above ground, the alien ships continued their descent. Sleek, metallic vessels shaped like elongated teardrops hovered ominously over major cities. In Seoul, one such craft positioned itself above Gyeongbokgung Palace, casting an otherworldly glow over the historic site. Onlookers screamed and scattered as smaller drones detached from the main ship, zipping through the air like mechanical insects. Hae-jin watched the scene unfold from her apartment window. Her heart pounded as she considered the implications. Were these beings here to observe, to conquer, or worse, to exterminate? Whatever their intentions, humanity stood woefully unprepared. Deep underground, Jae-hyun reached the entrance to Sublevel 7. A heavy steel door blocked his path, requiring biometric authentication to open. Placing his palm against the scanner, he waited anxiously as the system processed his identity. When the door finally slid open with a hiss, cold air rushed out, carrying the faint scent of ozone. Beyond lay the Eclipse Core, a massive sphere suspended in a chamber bathed in soft, blue light. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, pulsating gently as if alive. Jae-hyun approached cautiously, marveling at the culmination of years of research and development. This machine represented humanity's best, and perhaps only, chance at survival. As he began the activation sequence, alarms blared throughout the facility. Through the intercom, Director Park's voice crackled urgently. "They're attacking! Hurry, Jae-hyun!" On the surface, explosions rocked the city. Buildings crumbled, sending plumes of dust and debris into the air. Power lines sparked and snapped, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness. Amidst the chaos, Hae-jin clutched her phone, praying silently for a miracle. Little did she know, deep beneath her feet, Jae-hyun was working tirelessly to deliver exactly that. The ground trembled beneath Hae-jin's feet as another explosion ripped through the city. Smoke billowed into the sky, choking the air with ash and dust. The once vibrant streets of Seoul were now a scene of chaos. Flames licked at the sides. Of collapsed buildings, shattered glass littered the pavement, and panicked citizens scrambled for safety. Hae-jin clutched her phone tightly, her hands trembling as she tried to record what was happening around her. She knew this footage might be the last evidence of humanity's struggle if things went south. Above, the alien ships loomed like ominous shadows against the night sky. Their sleek metallic surfaces reflected the fires below, giving them an almost ethereal glow. Smaller drones zipped between the larger vessels, scanning the ruins with glowing red sensors. It was clear they weren't just observing, they were hunting. Every movement on the ground seemed to draw their attention, and wherever they focused, destruction followed. Hae-jin ducked behind a toppled street lamp as one of the drones swooped. Low, its mechanical whine cutting through the cacophony of screams and collapsing structures. Her heart raced as she pressed herself flat against the cold concrete. For a moment, she considered running back to her apartment, but something stopped her. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was the journalist in her refusing to abandon the story of a lifetime. Whatever the reason, she stayed put, filming everything she could. Far below the surface, Jae-hyun navigated the dimly lit corridors of Sublevel 7. The Eclipse core hummed softly ahead of him, its pulsating glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. Activating the weapon was proving more complicated than he'd anticipated. Multiple security systems stood between him and the core, each requiring a unique code or biometric scan to bypass. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked quickly, his fingers flying over the control panels. "Come on," he muttered under his breath, glaring at the screen in front of him. A progress bar crawled agonizingly slowly across the display, indicating that the core's activation sequence was still incomplete. Time was running out, not just for him, but for everyone above ground. He could feel the vibrations of distant explosions resonating through the facility, a grim reminder of the battle raging overhead. Director Park's voice crackled through the intercom again, tense and urgent. "Jae-hyun, we've lost contact with several key locations. The aliens are targeting infrastructure, power plants, communication hubs, military bases. If you don't activate the core soon, there won't be anything left to save." Jae-hyun clenched his jaw. He didn't need reminders of the stakes. Every second felt like an eternity, every beep of the system a potential lifeline or a death knell. As he input the final sequence of commands, a new alert flashed on the screen. "Security breach detected." His blood ran cold. Somewhere in the facility, intruders had breached the perimeter. Whether they were human saboteurs or alien forces, he couldn't tell. All he knew was that he wasn't alone anymore. Meanwhile, Hyejin decided it was too dangerous to stay in the open. She slipped into a nearby subway station seeking refuge underground. The tunnels were dark and eerily quiet, save for the occasional drip of water echoing off the walls. As she moved deeper into the station, she stumbled upon a group of survivors, huddled together near the tracks. They looked up warily as she approached, their faces pale and streaked with soot. Among them was Min Seok, a former soldier in his late 20s. His rugged appearance and weary eyes hinted at years of hardship, but there was still a spark of determination in his gaze. Beside him sat So-eun, a young nurse cradling an infant wrapped in a thin blanket. Her hands shook as she adjusted the baby's position, trying to shield him from the horrors outside. "What's going on?" Min Seok asked gruffly when Hyejin joined them. His tone was guarded, but curiosity edged his words. "I'm not sure," Hyejin admitted, lowering herself onto the cold floor beside them. "But I think aliens are attacking us." A murmur rippled through the group. Some scoffed at the idea, dismissing it as paranoia. Others nodded solemnly, having seen enough to believe the worst. One elderly man spoke up, his voice trembling. "I heard a voice in my head. It said we're finished." Hyejin exchanged a glance with Min Seok. She hadn't mentioned the telepathic message yet, but clearly others had heard it too. Whoever, or whatever, was behind this invasion wasn't holding back. They wanted humanity to know exactly why they were being wiped out. "So what do we do?" So-eun whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We can't fight them. We don't even understand them." Min Seok placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We survive," he said firmly. "For now, that's all we can do." Hyejin admired his resolve, even if she wasn't sure she shared it. Survival sounded simple enough, but how long could they hold out against an enemy capable of leveling entire cities? Still, she forced a smile and nodded. "He's right. Let's stick together. Maybe someone will figure out a way to stop them." Back in the lab, Jae-hyun faced his first real challenge since entering Sublevel 7. The corridor ahead was blocked by a malfunctioning blast door, its heavy metal frame jammed halfway open. Sparks flew from exposed wires, and the faint smell of burning plastic filled the air. He examined the control panel mounted on the wall, searching for a way to override the mechanism. As he worked, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind him. Slowly, he turned, his heart pounding. Emerging from the shadows was a figure clad in black tactical gear, their face obscured by a helmet. Jae-hyun froze, unsure whether to trust them. Were they friend or foe? "Who are you?" he demanded, backing away cautiously. The figure raised their hands in surrender, removing their helmet to reveal a woman with sharp features and piercing eyes. "My name's Yoonji," she said briskly. I'm with the defense team. We're here to help secure the core. Relief washed over Jae-hyun, though he remained wary. How did you get down here? There's been a breach, Yoonji explained, stepping closer. Alien drones infiltrated the upper levels. We barely made it through alive. Are you close to activating the core? Jae-hyun hesitated before nodding. Almost. But I need to bypass this door first. Yoonji studied the damaged mechanism, then pulled a small toolkit from her belt. Let me handle it. You focus on the core. We don't have much time. Working together, they managed to pry the door open just enough for Jae-hyun to squeeze through. Beyond lay the final chamber housing the Eclipse core. Its glow intensified as Jae-hyun approached, responding to his presence like a living entity. He placed his palm on a biometric scanner, triggering the final phase of activation. The core began to hum louder, its surface rippling with energy. Lines of light traced intricate patterns across its shell, illuminating the room in waves of blue and white. Jae-hyun watched in awe, feeling both pride and dread. This machine represented humanity's ingenuity, but also its desperation. If it failed, everything would be lost. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the chamber into darkness for a brief moment. Alarms blared throughout the facility, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of heavy machinery descending from above. The aliens had found them. We need to move, Yoonji shouted, grabbing Jae-hyun's arm. They're coming! Jae-hyun hesitated, torn between staying to ensure the core's activation and fleeing to safety. Then he remembered the countless lives depending on him. With a deep breath, he hit the final button, initiating the launch sequence. The core detached from its moorings, rising slowly toward the ceiling. Go! He yelled, pushing Yoonji toward the exit. Together, they sprinted down the corridor, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the core prepared to ascend to the surface. Above ground, the situation grew dire. Alien drones swarmed the skies, firing beams of concentrated energy at anything that moved. Buildings crumbled, cars exploded, and fires raged unchecked. Amidst the devastation, Hae-jin and the survivors emerged from the subway station, seeking higher ground. Min-seok led the way, his military training kicking in as he guided the group through the wreckage. As they reached the base of Namsan Mountain, a deafening roar split the air. Looking up, they saw the Eclipse core erupt from the earth, ascending rapidly toward the alien fleet. Its brilliant glow illuminated the night sky, drawing the attention of both humans and invaders alike. Hae-jin held her breath, watching as the core hovered momentarily before surging forward, heading straight for the largest alien vessel. Tears welled in her eyes as hope mingled with fear. Could this be humanity's last stand, or was it already too late? Unbeknownst to her, deep within the alien mothership, Vorath, their leader, watched the core's approach with growing unease. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Perhaps, he thought, these primitive beings were not as powerless as he had assumed. The Eclipse core soared through the night sky, its glowing surface cutting through the darkness like a beacon of defiance. Below, Hae-jin and the survivors watched in stunned silence as the spherical vessel ascended higher and higher, heading straight for the alien fleet. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a symbol of humanity's last hope. The air buzzed with tension, every heartbeat synchronized with the core's steady hum. Inside the alien mothership, Vorath stood on the command deck, his towering form bathed in the cold light of holographic displays. He had observed Earth for months, studying its inhabitants with detached curiosity. To him, humans were little more than pests, short-lived creatures who squabbled over resources while poisoning their own planet. Yet now, as he stared at the approaching core, something unfamiliar stirred within him. Uncertainty. "This weapon is primitive," one of his subordinates said, attempting to reassure him. "It cannot penetrate our defenses." Vorath didn't respond. Instead, he focused on the data streaming across the screens, analyzing the core's trajectory and energy signature. There was something about it, something unpredictable. For all their arrogance, the aliens hadn't anticipated humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate under pressure. And that unpredictability made Vorath uneasy. Back on Earth, Jae-hyun and Yoonji raced through the crumbling facility, dodging falling debris and bursts of electrical discharge. The entire structure groaned under the strain of the alien assault, threatening to collapse at any moment. Their footsteps echoed loudly in the narrow corridors, mingling with the distant rumble of explosions above ground. "We're not going to make it out alive if we stay here," Yoon-ji shouted over the noise, her voice strained but determined. Jae-hyun didn't reply. His mind was racing, calculating the odds of survival. He knew the Eclipse Core was designed to operate autonomously once activated, but there was still a chance it might malfunction without human guidance. If that happened, everything they'd sacrificed would be for nothing. "We need to find shelter," he finally said, glancing around for an escape route. "Somewhere safe enough to monitor the Core's progress." Yoon-ji nodded, scanning the area for options. Spotting a reinforced door labeled Emergency Shelter, she gestured toward it. "Over there!" They bolted toward the door, slamming it. Shut behind them just as a section of the ceiling collapsed where they had been standing moments earlier. Inside the shelter, the air was thick with dust, and the dim emergency lights flickered erratically. A small terminal sat against the far wall, connected to external cameras and communication systems. Jae-hyun immediately set to work, pulling up live feeds of the Core's ascent. On the monitor, the Core moved with surprising speed and precision, weaving between the alien drones that attempted to intercept it. Each time a drone fired a shot, the Core's advanced AI calculated the angle of attack and adjusted its course accordingly. Laser beams missed by mere inches, leaving trails of superheated air in their wake. Jae-hyun couldn't help but feel a pang of pride. It was his creation, after all. But pride quickly gave way to fear. Even with its impressive capabilities, the Core was vastly outnumbered. "They're trying to stop it," Yoon-ji whispered, her eyes glued to the screen. "Do you think it can hold out?" Jae-hyun clenched his fists. "It has to." Above ground, chaos reigned supreme. Alien ships unleashed devastating attacks, targeting anything that moved. Streets became rivers of fire, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. Hyejin and the survivors continued their climb up Namsan Mountain, using the cover of trees and boulders to avoid detection. Min Seok led the way, his military instincts guiding them through the treacherous terrain. So-eun followed close behind, clutching her baby tightly as tears streamed down her face. "We're almost there," Min Seok assured her, though his voice betrayed his own exhaustion. They had been running for hours, and the constant sound of destruction weighed heavily on everyone's spirits. At the summit, they found temporary refuge in an abandoned observatory. Its glass windows were shattered, but the sturdy stone walls provided some protection from the elements and from prying alien sensors. Hee-jin leaned against the doorway, staring out at the city below. What she saw broke her heart. Seoul, once a bustling metropolis full of life and color, was now a smoldering ruin. Fires raged unchecked, and plumes of black smoke blotted out the stars. Min Seok joined her, his expression grim. "Do you think that thing will work?" he asked, nodding toward the Eclipse Core, which was now visible as a bright speck in the sky. Hyejin hesitated before answering. "I don't know, but it's our only chance." Meanwhile, aboard the alien mothership, Vorath issued orders to his crew, his voice calm but laced with urgency. "Deploy the interceptor fleet," he commanded. "Destroy the Core before it reaches us." Dozens of smaller vessels peeled away from the main fleet, speeding toward the intruder. Their sleek forms shimmered in the moonlight as they formed. A tight formation surrounding the Core like predators closing in on prey. Energy weapons charged, ready to unleash a barrage of lethal firepower. But the Core was no ordinary machine. Its AI processed thousands of variables per second, predicting enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. As the first wave of shots approached, the Core released a burst of electromagnetic pulses, disabling several drones instantly. Those that remained functional regrouped, firing again with increased ferocity. Still, the Core evaded every strike, dancing through the storm of projectiles with grace and precision. Vorath watched the battle unfold with growing frustration. "This should not be possible," he muttered, his long fingers tapping rhythmically against the armrest of his chair. For the first time in centuries, he felt doubt creeping into his decision-making. Perhaps eradicating humanity wasn't as simple as he had assumed. Deep underground, Jae-hyun monitored the Core's progress anxiously. The terminal displayed real-time updates, showing the Corps' position relative to the alien fleet. Every successful evasion brought a flicker of hope, but the sheer number of enemy ships left little room for optimism. "They're sending reinforcements," Yoon-ji said, pointing to a cluster of red dots appearing on the radar. "It's too many." Jae-hyun shook his head, refusing to give up. "Not yet. Look." On the screen, the Corps unleashed another EMP blast, taking out a significant portion of the interceptor fleet. The remaining drones faltered, their systems temporarily disabled. Seizing the opportunity, the Corps accelerated, breaking through the blockade and heading directly for the mothership. "That's it," Jae-hyun whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "Keep going." Above ground, Hyejin and the others gathered at the edge of the observatory, watching as the Corps neared the massive alien vessel. The mothership dwarfed everything else in the sky, its dark angular shape blotting out the horizon. Green energy pulses rippled across its surface, charging what appeared to be a devastating weapon. "They're preparing to fire," Min-seok said, his tone grim. "If that hits the Corps—" No one finished the thought. Instead, they held their breath, praying silently for a miracle. Suddenly, the Corps emitted a blinding flash of light, momentarily obscuring the view. When the glare faded, the Corps had breached the mothership's outer defenses, embedding itself deep within the alien vessel's core reactor. Alarms blared across the battlefield, and the mothership shuddered violently, its systems destabilizing. "It's inside," Hyejin breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It actually did it." For a brief moment, there was silence, a surreal pause, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, with a deafening roar, the Eclipse core detonated, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion that tore through the mothership. Shards of metal and plasma erupted outward, engulfing the surrounding alien fleet in a fiery inferno. Hyejin shielded her face as the shockwave rippled through the atmosphere, shaking the ground beneath her feet. When she looked up again, the sky was clear. The alien ships were gone, reduced to drifting fragments scattered across the heavens. In the emergency shelter, Jae-hyun slumped against the wall, tears streaming down his face. He had done it. He had saved humanity. But at what cost? Yoon-ji placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. Outside, Hyejin turned to Min-seok and So-eun, her voice trembling with emotion. "We made it. Against all odds, we survived." But even as relief washed over them, a question lingered in the air. What came next? The explosion in the sky was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. It wasn't just a burst of light or a fiery blast. It was a cataclysm that seemed to tear apart the fabric of reality itself. The alien mothership, once an imposing monolith, dominating the heavens, disintegrated into countless shards, scattering across the atmosphere like glittering dust. Its destruction sent shockwaves rippling through the air, shaking the ground and sending debris raining down over the ruined city. Hyejin shielded her face as chunks of molten metal and charred alien alloy fell around her. Some pieces were small, enough to be harmless, but others struck the earth with explosive force, creating craters where buildings had already collapsed. Despite the danger, she couldn't look away. Her eyes remained fixed on the sky, watching as the remnants of the alien fleet drifted aimlessly, their sleek forms now broken and lifeless. Min-seok stood beside her, his jaw clenched tightly as he scanned the horizon for any sign of further threats. So-eun crouched nearby, clutching her baby close, her body trembling from exhaustion and fear. The group had survived the worst of it, but none of them dared to celebrate just yet. Not until they were sure the nightmare was truly over. "They're gone," Hyejin whispered finally, her voice barely audible over the distant echoes of destruction. "They're really gone." Min-seok nodded slowly, though his expression remained cautious. "For now," he said, "but we don't know if there are more of them out there." Hyejin didn't respond. She couldn't bring herself to think about what might come next. For the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Images of Jae-hyun flashed through her mind, the quiet engineer who had sacrificed everything to save them. She didn't know whether he was still alive, but she felt a deep sense of gratitude toward him, and guilt for not knowing his fate. Deep underground, Jae-hyun sat slumped against the wall of the emergency shelter, staring blankly at the terminal. Screen. The feed showing the Eclipse Core's progress had cut off moments after the detonation, leaving only static. He knew what that meant. The core had fulfilled its purpose, destroying the alien fleet at the cost of its own existence, and possibly his own life as well. Yoonji knelt beside him, her face pale but resolute. "We need to get out of here," she said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The facility is unstable. If we stay, we'll be buried alive." Jae-hyun didn't move. His thoughts were consumed by the enormity of what had happened. He had spent years working on the Eclipse Core, pouring every ounce of his intellect and energy into its creation. And now, it was gone, destroyed along with the enemy it had defeated. Part of him wanted to feel proud, triumphant even. But all he could muster was a hollow emptiness. "Do you think anyone will remember?" he asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Will they know what we did?" Yoonji hesitated before answering. "Yes," she said firmly. "People will remember. You saved billions of lives tonight. That's something no one can forget." Her words offered little comfort, but Jae-hyun forced himself to stand. They had no choice but to keep moving. Together they made their way back through the crumbling corridors, navigating fallen beams and pools of water leaking from ruptured pipes. The facility groaned under the strain of the battle above, threatening to collapse at any moment. Every step felt like a gamble, but neither of them hesitated. When they finally emerged into the open air, the scene that greeted them was both devastating and surreal. Smoke choked the sky, blotting out the stars and casting the city in an eerie, orange glow. Fires raged unchecked, consuming what little remained of Seoul's infrastructure. Yet amidst the destruction, there were signs of life. Small groups of survivors huddled together, tending to the injured and searching for loved ones. Jae-hyun scanned the crowd, hoping to catch a glimpse of a familiar face. Then he saw her, Hye-jin, standing atop a pile of rubble near Namsan Mountain. Their eyes met briefly, and for a fleeting moment relief washed over him. At least she had survived. That was enough. Back on the alien mothership, or what was left of it, Vorath floated silently in the void, his consciousness tethered to a fragment of the ship's core reactor. The explosion had obliterated most of his physical form, but his essence endured, preserved within the advanced technology of his people. As he drifted through space, he replayed the events leading up to his defeat, analyzing every mistake, every miscalculation. Humans had been so fragile, so insignificant, compared to his kind, and yet they had proven themselves capable of unimaginable resilience. Vorath had underestimated them, dismissing their potential because of their flaws. Now, as he reflected on his failure, he realized how wrong he had been. Perhaps, he thought, his mental voice barely a whisper, perhaps we were wrong. The shard of the mothership carrying Vorath's consciousness continued its lonely journey through the cosmos, propelled by the last remnants of its propulsion system. Somewhere in the depths of space, it would eventually collide with another vessel, or perhaps drift forever, a silent testament to the arrogance of those who sought to erase an entire species. In the aftermath of the battle, the survivors began piecing together what remained of their world. Emergency response teams worked tirelessly to extinguish fires and clear debris, while makeshift shelters sprang up in parks and open spaces. Communication networks remained down, but rumors spread quickly among the displaced population. Stories of the Eclipse Core and its mysterious pilot became legend almost overnight. Hye-jin documented everything she could, snapping photos and jotting notes in a weathered notebook. She knew the world would want answers, needed answers, and she intended to provide them. Her camera lens captured images of devastation and hope alike, families reuniting amidst the ruins, volunteers distributing food and supplies, and strangers helping one another without hesitation. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Hye-jin climbed to the summit of Namsan Mountain. From there, she could see the full extent of the damage. Most of Seoul lay in ruins, but scattered lights flickered in the distance, a reminder that life persisted even in the darkest times. Min-seok joined her, carrying a thermos of hot tea. He handed her a cup, his expression softer than usual. "You've done your part," he said. "Now let someone else take over for a while." Hye-jin shook her head. "I can't stop. Not yet. Someone needs to tell this story, to make sure no one forgets." Min-seok sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he gazed out at the horizon, his thoughts drifting to the future. "What happens next?" he asked. "We've won this fight, but we're far from safe." Hye-jin didn't have an answer. None of them did. The aliens' attack had left humanity vulnerable, exposed to dangers they hadn't even considered before. Rebuilding wouldn't be easy, and trust, both within society and between nations, would take years to restore. But despite the uncertainty, there was a glimmer of hope. People had come together in ways no one expected, proving that even in the face of annihilation, humanity could find strength in unity. Elsewhere, Jae-hyun wandered through the wreckage of the city, searching for survivors who might need help. His hands were blistered and raw from hours of digging through rubble, but he pushed on, driven by a quiet determination. Each life he saved felt like a small victory, a way to honor the sacrifices made during the battle. At one point, he stumbled upon a young boy sitting alone amidst the ruins, clutching a tattered stuffed animal. The child looked up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes, too traumatized to speak. Jae-hyun knelt beside him, offering a gentle smile. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." The boy hesitated before nodding, gripping Jae-hyun's hand tightly as they walked toward a nearby shelter. In that moment, Jae-hyun realized why he had dedicated his life to science and engineering. It wasn't just about solving problems or building machines. It was about protecting lives, ensuring that humanity had a chance to thrive despite the odds. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jae-hyun paused to take in the view. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in days, he felt a spark of optimism. Humanity had faced extinction and survived, not because of superior weapons or technology, but because of courage, ingenuity, and an unshakable will to endure. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The days that followed the alien attack were filled with both despair and hope. The city of Seoul lay in ruins, its once bustling streets now silent, except for the occasional sound of rescue teams sifting through debris or the distant hum of generators powering makeshift shelters. Yet amidst the destruction, there was a quiet determination, a shared understanding among survivors that life had to go on. Hye-jin spent her days documenting the aftermath, capturing moments of resilience amid the rubble. Her camera became an extension of herself, a tool to preserve the stories of those who had endured the unimaginable. She interviewed families torn apart by the invasion, volunteers working tirelessly to rebuild, and scientists trying to make sense of the alien technology scattered across the globe. Each story added another layer to the narrative she was piecing together, a testament to humanity's strength in the face of extinction. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Hye-jin found herself standing atop Namsan Mountain once again. The view was different now, less vibrant, more somber. But it still held a kind of beauty. In the distance, faint lights flickered where people were beginning to rebuild their homes. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind her that humanity wasn't done yet. Min-seok joined her, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket. He carried a rolled-up map under one arm, marking locations where aid was needed most. "You ever think about what comes next?" he asked, breaking the silence. "All the time," Hye-jin replied, lowering her camera. "But I don't have answers. No one does." Min-seok nodded slowly. "We'll figure it out. We always do." There was a pause before So-eun appeared, cradling her baby in her arms. The infant gurgled softly, seemingly unaware of the chaos surrounding them. So-eun smiled weakly at Hye-jin and Min-seok, her eyes red from lack of sleep, but filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Hye-jin shook her head. "We didn't do anything special. We just survived." So-eun's smile widened slightly. "Surviving is special. Meanwhile, Jae-hyun continued his work salvaging pieces of alien technology from the wreckage. Scientists from around the world had descended upon Seoul, eager to study the remnants of the invaders' fleet. Some hoped to learn how to defend against future attacks. Others sought to harness the advanced tech for humanity's benefit. Jae-hyun preferred not to speculate about the moral implications. For him, it was personal. A way to honor the weapon he had created and the sacrifices made to deploy it. He worked alongside Yoon-ji, whose sharp mind and steady hand proved invaluable in analyzing the alien artifacts. Together, they pored over fragments of metal and circuitry, piecing together clues about the invaders' origins and motives. One discovery stood out above the rest. A shard of the mothership's core reactor, etched with strange symbols that pulsed faintly with residual energy. "What do you think it means?" Yoon-ji asked, tracing the markings with gloved fingers. Jae-hyun shrugged. "Maybe it's a message, or maybe it's just junk." Yoon-ji frowned. "It feels important, like they wanted us to find it." Jae-hyun didn't respond. He couldn't shake the feeling that the shard held some deeper significance, though he doubted anyone would ever fully understand it. Still, he carefully stored it in a secure container, determined to protect whatever secrets it might hold. As weeks turned into months, the world began to heal, at least on the surface. Governments collaborated like never before, pooling resources to rebuild devastated cities and establish new defense systems. Scientists raced to reverse-engineer alien technology, hoping to create tools that could prevent another attack. And ordinary citizens, inspired by acts of bravery during the invasion, came together to support one another in ways no one had thought possible. But beneath the progress lay lingering questions. Why had the aliens targeted Earth? What had driven them to such extreme measures? And most importantly, were they truly gone, or merely regrouping? Hee-jin wrestled with these questions daily. Her documentary project grew larger than she'd anticipated, drawing attention from news outlets and researchers worldwide. People praised her for shedding light on humanity's darkest hour, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial, something bigger. One night, while reviewing footage of the battle, she noticed something odd. A brief flicker in the sky moments before the eclipse core detonated. Zooming in, she saw what looked like a fragment of the mothership breaking away from the explosion. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but it was definitely moving, heading deeper into space. Her heart raced as she cross-referenced the footage with satellite data collected during the attack. Sure enough, the fragment had escaped undetected, propelled by residual energy from the blast. Whatever it was, it hadn't been destroyed. Hye-jin immediately contacted Jae-hyun, sharing her findings over a secure video call. His expression darkened as he processed the information. "If that's true," he said slowly, "then we're not finished with them." Hye-jin nodded grimly. "I think they left something behind. A message, or maybe a warning." Jae-hyun stared at the screen for a long moment before speaking. "Then we need to find out what it is." In the depths of space, Vorath's consciousness drifted within the shard of the mothership's core reactor. Though his physical form was gone, his thoughts remained sharp, analytical. He replayed the events leading up to his defeat, searching for patterns, for meaning. Humanity had proven itself capable of incredible feats, not just technological innovation, but unity and sacrifice. Traits he had dismissed as weaknesses were, in fact, strengths. Perhaps, he thought again, his mental voice softer this time. Perhaps erasure was never the answer. The shard continued its journey, carrying Vorath's essence toward an unknown destination. Along the way, it transmitted fragments of data, images of Earth, recordings of human voices, and traces of the eclipse core's final moments. Whether these transmissions would reach anyone or anything remained uncertain. But Vorath clung to the hope that someone, somewhere, might learn from his failure. Back on Earth, Hye-jin and Jae-hyun worked together to piece together the mystery of the escaped fragment. They collaborated with scientists, engineers, and linguists, analyzing every scrap of evidence they could gather. Slowly but surely, a clearer picture emerged. The fragment contained a message, encoded in a language unlike any known to humanity. Deciphering it would take time, and perhaps more effort than anyone realized. Yet despite the challenges ahead, Hyejin felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about documenting history anymore, it was about preparing for the future. Humanity had faced annihilation and survived. Now, it was time to ensure they were ready if, or when, the aliens returned. On a crisp autumn morning, Hyejin stood beside Jae-hyun at the edge of Seoul, looking out over the city as it rose from the ashes. Construction crews worked tirelessly, laying foundations for new buildings and repairing damaged roads. Children played in the streets, laughing and chasing each other without a care in the world. Life was fragile, yes, but also resilient. "We did good," Jae-hyun said quietly, breaking the silence. Hyejin smiled, faint ally. "We did." But as she glanced at the horizon, her gaze lingered on the stars twinkling faintly in the distance. Somewhere out there, the shard of the mothership continued its lonely journey, carrying secrets that could change everything. And Hyejin knew, one day, humanity would have to confront those secrets no matter how daunting they might be. Until then, they would keep moving forward, because that's what humans did best.